So if you've watched my previous video about making an 8x8 dock section using salvage foam floats, you'll know that this is the expensive way to do things using commercially purchased floats. But my salvage foam floats are cylindrical, and so you can't just put one big long one on a walkway because it'll spin. You need these square floats on the bottom to keep it from sliding side to side and flipping over when people walk on top of it. These floats do increase the cost considerably. I spent $250 for these two floats. They are 24 inches by 48 inches by 16 inches. I was hoping when they said 48 inches, they would actually mean it'd be like dimensional lumber, where it was a couple inches narrower than that, so I could use a 48-inch end board, but they're not. They're actually a full 48 inches. So the width of this thing is like 51, 52 inches wide. And so that has negative consequences on my deck boards because my deck boards are 8 feet long and I can't use two pieces of them. I can only use one piece of them and have like a 44-inch deck board left over. So I have a lot of leftover deck boards, and that's why my next section is only going to be 3 feet wide so that I can use those leftover deck boards. But I basically also have to use a full 2x6x8 board for each of these cross pieces. So I have extra 2x6x8 cross pieces as well. That doesn't hurt as much because the cross pieces boards, the boards on the pressure treated ground contact 2x6s, they're really not that expensive. I spent $33 for 6 of them. So as you can see here, I'm basically just making a frame. I'm putting these guys in the center so the deck boards have something to rest on. On the two sides, the deck boards will be resting on top of the floats. And I'm just using deck screws to screw this together. I'm on a freshwater lake, so I'm not really worried about saltwater here. Now these floats are going to be bolted into my deck boards, so they're not actually connected to the 2x6s at all. I'm going to be putting deck boards on top of the 2x6s, and you can see me going through here and making sure my frame is square, and then cutting the deck boards and installing them. And one of the most annoying things here is pulling all of the little barcode and stickers off the end of these deck boards. And as you can see, I have a lot of deck board hanging off the far end, so I need to use an extra spare 2x6 to prop it up at the right level. And when I cut them off, unfortunately, all these cut-off sections are going to be too narrow to reuse on this particular section of dock. These are composite deck boards. They're also a little more spendy than some other options you might have. They're about $12.60 each. I spent $214 for all the deck boards on this particular project, but some of these deck boards I will be able to reuse on my next section. When you order these floats, they come with a plug, and you can't put the plug in too soon or sunlight will cause the air to expand and kind of puff up the float, but you do have to put it in before you put it in the water in case any water ever gets on top. You don't want it going in the hole, so you do have to remember to put these plugs in. I actually had to go to the hardware store, make an extra trip, and buy some more deck boards to finish off the sections here. You can see the styrofoam float that's cylindrical in the background, and the camera is sitting on top of another one. So those are going to be part of a pontoon boat project. So I don't really need to get this dock done super quickly because the pontoon boat project isn't anywhere near completion yet. I went ahead and ripped a couple of sections in the center here just so everything would work out nicely. So you can see in the center of my dock I have a couple of smaller sections of board. And because they're composite deck boards, I'm vacuuming up all that kind of plasticky sawdust, because it probably won't degrade over time very much. So here's where I'm marking holes in the floats so I know where to drill into the deck boards to put my galvanized hardware. And the hardware is actually a decent amount of the cost on this project. The hardware for the connectors on the end piece that you haven't seen me put on yet is about 17 bucks. And for the floats, I bought large boxes, so I have enough for 2 or 3 dock sections, but it cost me about 50 bucks for all of the hardware. I probably used about $25 worth of that to put these floats in, but each float is held in by a pretty decent, or a set of 4 pretty decently sized bolts and washers. I also bought some extra hardware for outside corners and male T-connectors to hook this dock section to my existing dock section, and a couple of solar lights to put on the dock section just in case it should ever get loose and float out to the middle of the lake at night. There'll be some lights on it to notify people, hey, don't run into this. So all in all, for everything I bought, and everything here is new, I spent $687 on hardware for this 8-foot by 4-foot dock section. Here you can see these corner connectors which reinforce the corner and also allow me to dock into it into my next dock section. And once the whole thing's assembled, you definitely want 2 people and 2 hand trucks to move it around.